this will be my right panel, this will be my bottom, and this goes, oh, it's just way backwards. It doesn't really matter. This will be my right panel, this will be my left panel. So what I'll probably do is cut these dovetails on the table saw. Kind of depending on what I'm doing, I'll cut the tails on by hand or with the table saw. I found the table saw just is an easy way to scale some of the work that I do. Being able to get some parts of the process out of the way more quickly gives me more time to add some details and touches down the road, which I'm sure some purists will hate me for, but so let's go 1 inch and 13/16 and do that one more time. And our middle one's going to be a little bit narrow, but I am okay with that. That's 1 inch and 3/4. The custom grind, it's 1 to 7.5, which ends up being 7.6 degrees. Titties. High. So you're kind of looking for in getting to depth. I don't know if you can focus in on that guy, but at the, I don't have a pointer, like right there at the baseline, you'll start to see just a little light colored line where the saw blade comes through, and that means you're right at the baseline. What this does is it's going to cut out all these corners super clean, just leaves a little less chisel work on the tails. The bigger the reference, the better for a stop block. Actually, I said that, but I don't really know why. Somebody told me that once. Anyway, believe them or me or not, because I don't really have a reference for that or why. What I do is line up the upper board with the lower. It just gives me a vertical reference, although working at this angle where I can see my chisel helps a lot. So the upper one I'll probably get pretty close. Then I undercut these a little bit. Let's see. Oh, one trick you can do is take your square and set it up back here on the bench. And that'll just give you a square reference to come back to. And then when we're pairing, or excuse me, chopping is against the grain, pairing is down along the side. You can see these are kind of bent, but right down here at the blade or the chisel back is perpendicular to the piece. And what that does is it's just giving you the right angle as the mallet comes down. So you're not having to come right above it and tap down. It just gives it a little more comfort in bringing the two together, I guess. So we're always working towards the middle. And what I like to do is do half of whatever I've got. So you might take that whole chunk off, but that whole chunk, it may be too much fiber and it'll push the chisel back into your baseline. You'll have a fucked up baseline. And good sharp chisel should gnaw right through this shit. I should probably learn how to not swear when I'm talking if we're going to use the commentary. On YouTube. Usually what I like to do is, so I'll go halfway, give it 2 little taps and then undercut. And then when you come back to do the next one, doing all these in 3 cuts, I'm going to come just above the baseline. And I'm going to do the same thing, tap, tap, and then undercut, undercut. And we're going to about center. And then we're going to come and cut this baseline in. And what that'll do by undercutting all the way up to it is this should just take a couple passes, little tiny whacks to get dead square in there. Then just by eye, I'm checking to make sure if there's any obstruction between the 2 baselines. So sometimes I can see there's a little hump in there. Usually it's just loose stuff, but if it's something that hasn't been cut, it'll jam up the dovetail. You can see this guy's just a little bit high on one side. Oh yeah, that's looking better. I like to work from the show side in, so if I do slip while I'm doing this, I tear out the back and not the front. So they may be machine cut, but everything is hand fit. And I guess we'll see more of that in the next step. Let's take this baseline and do a super deep line to go off of. And doesn't have to be much. Just come with a chisel and mark out that shoulder right there. And what that's going to give is a really nice spot. You can saw right up to your line. I don't like to. I usually am fine when I do, but I like to take that last little bit by hand. Oops. Right down to that baseline. I like to undercut just a touch. And you can see, I don't know if you can get in on that, see that little tiny gap right up here. So there's a gap there and it's closed right there. So I know that there's just a little bit, and looking on that side you can see that baseline that I just need to shave just a bit more off of. And you could come straight down on it. What I think is safer is finding a pivot point. See, I've got a reference here at this corner, and then all you're gonna do is come in, shave that guy off. So you can see how deep the knife line comes down right here on the shoulder. And since I did that first thing with the chisel where I came down and then I cut out that little wedge, what that leaves is the baseline basically just sunken down. So as I'm coming across, what I'm looking for is to see if that shelf, and it presents as kind of a light colored line. There you can kind of see it, what's left of it. But I'm just coming down until that white line disappears, or starts to. And then I know I'm pretty close. Then I can check it with a square. What I like to do is shine a light right in my face. And that'll help me line up these baselines. Let's see if you can get that. You can see how the light, and that's about where I need to be. I have kind of a history of these guys wanting to scoot around, so usually I'll just put this guy, do it about hand tight. Doesn't need to hold it very hard, but just a little bit to keep it in place. I want the baselines lined up, and then I also want the sides to not be out of whack at all. Then I can come through here, give it a little light swipe, heavy swipe, light swipe, heavy swipe. And there's the pins. So we'll X out this, and this, and this, and this, and that. Basically, it doesn't matter what the tails look like, they're your template, right? So what's important is the transfer, bringing your template down to the pin board. And that's really true for most joinery. As long as the edges are square on the master, then the template is the important part. This is probably an extra step, maybe a little bit unnecessary, but I like to do it and bring that layout back to the back side. If you bring your knife lines up and over the shoulder, then you've got a place for your knife to ride in as you bring these down vertically. Alright, now I set the cut from the face. So if I overcut, it's likely going to be on the back side, and if I do so, I don't want to see it. This is my favorite saw. So this is kind of the difference between the cheap saws and the expensive saws. This sets in a brass rod, basically the back, whereas this guy is actually folded and tensioned in there, so if you kink this, you can tap it and the tension held in the back will actually re-straighten the plate. Pretty fucking cool. We come through. And there's the rough out, and we can knock these out real quick. I can show you how the dovetails get together. Cool. Take half of the waist, tap tap, undercut. So I'll try to hit just a little bit over center, and I get there by using my fingers as a depth stop, and not really like holding it here and feeling as it goes, but I can kind of gauge how deep I am by how my fingers are bent at the bottom of the cut, because I don't want to be getting any scratches in my baby here, my Roubeau. Cool. So baselines are cut. Come do the same sort of thing, just to see if there's any like weird little bumps that I missed. That's all looking pretty titties. And you can see where I sawed down really close to the lines here, the layout, the transfer. So now what I'll just do is come through and pair those off. And down that pairing line. What I'm looking for here is I'll come side to side and see if there's any humps in the center of any of these. There's a little hump. backs of your tools are excellent gauges for flat and straight. So a little hump.